Welcome to Learn English Through Documentary, Female Empowerment Series. Today we will watch the story of Hannah Drake, an American poet and human rights activist who spoke out for victims of racial discrimination. In this video, you will learn about the following content. Hannah Drake is an American poet and human rights activist. She joined protests and wrote poetry to speak out for Breonna Taylor, a young Black woman who was wrongly killed by police. She is inspired by various human rights movements and hopes the history of slavery and its impact on society will not be forgotten. In addition, you can learn the following vocabulary: divide, racism, whitewash, lynch, slavery, unfold, condemnation, liberation, descendant, and unmarked. You can also learn the following phrases: the bulk of something, cries of justice for, marched into, at times, and loosen up. We've designed 3 questions for the content and cultural knowledge. Finally, there will be 10 questions to help you review what you learn. Before entering today's episode, we have the first question for you. Hannah Drake is a female poet who likes to write poems about love and nature. Is this statement true? Listen closely. The answer is in the video. Now let's begin our video.
When I was 3, my mom taught me how to read. I could immediately pick up on words. In my head, I can see exactly where the words should go. It's like rearranging a puzzle. I just can see the whole picture, but I just see it with words. I never wrote poetry like love poems or about nature, always about race for some reason. It was always about this struggle of being Black, and it was about wanting freedom. The bulk of my work was just looking at the world around me and saying, I have something to say about this. The Ohio River is a dividing line between Indiana and Kentucky. So Indiana was a free state. Kentucky was a slave state. Louisville is a very divided city. It has a lot of challenges, yeah. And most of them, to me, are centered around racism. When people are done being racist, I'll never talk about racism again. Until that, we're gonna talk about it every day, period.
I'm witnessing the mastermind. Gotcha.
Hannah Drake. Thank you, Hannah.
We the people, in order to form a more perfect union. But as I look around this nation, I have to ask myself, what are we doing? How many more times must I continue to sing the same song? Somebody tell me, how is it that we continue to get this wrong? How is it that after 400 years, we are still trying to whitewash history? How is it? Hi, Mr. Hamilton. How are you?
I'm good. How about you, sweetheart?
I am well. I was speaking at U of L, so I'm sorry I'm late. My shoes off?
Yeah, take your shoes off.
Okay.
Let's see. That's what we're going to do. We're going to get some warm water. ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, just take it.
My mom, when she was a little girl, she used to pick cotton in Tennessee. So I asked, what was your grandmother's name? She said, I don't know her name. That's like the end of me tracing my family anywhere. Kentucky lynched 169 people that they know of. 8 of them are listed as unknown. And for some reason, that word stayed with me, which is why I think my life's work in discovering these names are important to me. I think it was a path I was always on. The Unknown Project is on the Ohio River, and it's on a platform. And in this platform are footprints. And I wanted people to be able to sit and just look across the Ohio River and see how close freedom really was. So on the backs of these benches are the names of people that were enslaved. We want to mark where we believe, or history believes, the narrowest part of the river that enslaved people would have crossed. For Black people in America, it always seems like it's just right there in front of you. And if I can just get to this thing, then I will be free.
Did you get the answer? The answer is false. In the video, Hannah mentions that she never wrote poetry like love poems or about nature. She always wrote about race, about the struggle of being Black, and about longing for freedom. Let's review the vocabulary of this section. Divide. The river divides the city into 2 parts. Dividing line. The Ohio River is a dividing line between Indiana and Kentucky. Divided. Louisville is a very divided city. Racism. Racism mainly refers to discrimination issues at the social, structural, and institutional levels. For example, he is writing a report on racism. Education plays a vital role in combating racism. Racist is more concerned about personal discriminatory ideas, speech, and behaviors. For example, his comments were racist. When people are done being racist, I'll never talk about racism again. Whitewash. The original meaning of this word is to paint the surface white to cover up the original color or stain. For example, he whitewashed the wall. In modern society, it also extends to the meaning of concealing the truth. For example, this history textbook whitewashes the country's history of invading other countries. How is it that after 400 years we are still trying to whitewash history? Lynch. Kentucky lynched 169 people that they know of. The word lynch originated from the American South. In the 19th and early 20th centuries, many African Americans were lynched by white mobs, especially by hanging. These incidents are often called lynching. They left deep scars in American history and had a huge impact on the psychology and society of African Americans. There is an important phrase in this section. The bulk of something. The bulk of my work was just looking at the world around me and saying, I have something to say about this. Repeat after me. The bulk of my work was just looking at the world around me. Before entering the second part, let's have a look at our question. How did Hannah Drake react after Breonna Taylor was accidentally killed by the police? A. She left the city. B. She forgot the event. C. She participated in protests. D. She has no longer written poetry. Listen closely. The answer is in the video.
There is nowhere you can go that slavery has not touched in America. It's the story of America. It built America. Black people in America want to be free. Yeah. We're not free when you can come in my home and kill me. That's not freedom.
Overnight, cries of justice for Breonna Taylor only growing louder. These intense scenes unfolding across the country just days after a grand jury ruled not to charge the Louisville police officers involved in her death.
Every day was like a war zone. You could not have kept me from downtown. Not when a Black 26-year-old woman is murdered in her home by the police. I have to use what I know to do, which was to speak and to use my voice and to use poetry.
That is why I'm in these spaces. It is for everyone that came before me, that sipped water at the colored-only fountain, that marched into integrated schools and knew they would be just one of 9. It is for my mother, that stood in the space of a cotton field picking cotton for 80 cents a day. It is for everyone that will come after me, for them to know that they have a right to be in these spaces, to have a seat at the table, in these spaces to have a voice, in these spaces to have influence, in these spaces. You see, that is why I stand in these spaces even when it makes me uncomfortable. And now some of you sit looking at me, and now you feel uncomfortable. But today you have heard me.
And then remember the second night of the protest when we went out?
We went out the third night.
No, we went out the second night.
Lord Jesus, it all seems like it's not real. Here we are. That's May 29th.
Look, black t-shirt.
Black t-shirt, justice for Breonna. We was ready, wasn't we? And this is when all hell broke loose.
Oh yeah.
This was right before we got tear gas.
I was in the grass.
This armored truck, and we were telling these people, get up, don't sit in front of this truck. And this looks like you have on a no.
This was when we thought we were gonna reconcile things 2 days after being tear gas.
Lord, keep me near the cross.
That was such a crazy time.
The cross. It doesn't seem real. It doesn't.
And I wish it wasn't.
Yeah. And it keeps on, Trayvon, I wish it wasn't either. I do. Oh, my friend did this video. This is Formation.
It is simply confirmation and the very reason we're celebrating. This is the manifestation of a bloodline that birthed a nation. We ain't offspring with the foundation of creation. When you sip from Mother Earth, you're drinking our libation. This is lyrical liberation. You want to be mad at something? Be mad at the blood on the hands of this nation.
That's crazy.
Did you get the answer? The answer is C. She participated in protests. Hannah said every day since the incident has been like a war zone, but it could not have kept her from downtown. She must protest the way she knew, which is through words, with her voice and poetry. She also talked with her daughter about participating in the protests and recited 2 poems she wrote, Spaces and Formation, at the event to call for everyone's attention to the incident. Let's review the vocabulary of this section. Slavery. There is nowhere you can go that slavery has not touched in America. Let's take the opportunity to learn 2 other related words in the video. Slave. Indiana was a free state, while Kentucky was a slave state. Enslaved. On the backs of these benches are the names of people that were enslaved. The narrowest part of the river is where enslaved people would have crossed. Unfold. The prefix un usually means no, or cancel, etc. The root fold means to bend something. Therefore, unfold means open or spread out something. For example, unfold a map. These intense scenes unfolding across the country just days after a grand jury ruled not to charge the Louisville police officers involved in her death. Condemnation. We are unbothered by your hating and your condemnation. The verb form of condemnation is condemn. I condemn your racist comments. Pay attention to the pronunciation. The ending N is silent. According to the English pronunciation rules, words ending with MN usually only pronounce the M sound. Condemn originally has 2 syllables, which is pronounced as condemn. However, its noun form, condemnation, has 4 syllables, which is pronounced as condemnation, and the N will need to be pronounced. Liberation. The liberation of a country. The liberation of slaves. This is lyrical liberation. There are 2 important phrases in this section. Cries of justice for. Overnight, cries of justice for Breonna Taylor grew louder. Marched into. Similarly, regarding walking in, march into will have more obvious determination than go into. That marched into integrated schools and knew they would be just one of 9. The background of this poem is that in the mid-20th century, integrated schools were established in the United States after the desegregation of education in the hope of achieving educational equality. However, many students of color still faced discrimination when they entered schools originally dominated by whites. Therefore, marched into is used in the poem. The verb marched means firmness and determination, implying that these people are facing a challenge or change. In this video, Hannah mentioned Trayvon to her daughter. Do you know who he is? Trayvon, a 17-year-old African-American teenager, was walking back to his father's fiancée's house from a convenience store one day in 2012 with a bag of Skittles and a can of Arizona iced tea when he met a neighborhood watch volunteer, George Zimmerman. George called the police to report Trayvon's suspicious behavior. Even though the police dispatcher told George to stay in the car, George followed Trayvon. A confrontation ensued, and George shot Trayvon dead. George claimed that he shot Trayvon in self-defense after being physically attacked, but witnesses and evidence presented at the trial showed that George actively instigated the confrontation. However, in the end, George was still found not guilty. This verdict aroused widespread public anger and protests, and the incident became one of the famous cases of racial inequality in the United States. This is the final question. What are the human rights-related issues mentioned throughout the film? A. Racism. B. Slavery. C. Right to life and liberty. D. All of the above. Listen closely. The answer is in the video.
Oh, look at him.
Pick him up, Bree.
I knew that it was you. Hi, babe. Oh, thank you.
My daughter is named Breonna, and she's 26 years old. Same age as Breonna Taylor when she was killed. I don't want that to happen to my daughter, and I don't want my daughter to live in a space where at times you can just feel the racism. You know, I want my daughter to have an opportunity to live free. That's why I do many of the things that I do. But yeah, they want the same footprints to come out of the water.
Do you kind of know? I can envision 8 to 10 feet. I mean, you know, 2 4,
Right,
6,
right,
8,
right.
10, or 12, whatever. How long it takes to get to a certain point. Okay. All right. Yeah, we're gonna have to revisit the foundry on that issue.
Okay. Thank you.
Just kind of, wiggle it around like you're trying to get it loosened up. See, and then try to just lift your foot up and pull it. Yeah, there. Oh, there. That's it. Go ahead. Easy now. You want it'll split, but that's okay because it's thin right in there anyway. Okay, that doesn't matter. So now just try to lift your foot out and wiggle your toes. Keep wiggling your toes and look at that. Oh shit. That's perfect. Perfect. Yeah, look.
I can see my toes.
Look at your skin. You see that?
Yes.
So, next step is just to pour some plaster into that and get a reproduction of it. And then voila, that's it.
That is something else.
Here, it takes time.
I got time. Whenever you call me, I'm going to run over and get it. I love you.
Love you too, baby. Take care. Be blessed.
You too. No one knew Breonna Taylor. And then, like I said, the camera shifted to Louisville and everyone wanted to, who was that girl? She had a name. What was her name? Her name was just Barry. Same thing with the Unknown Project. These people are no longer unknown. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 sets of feet to go from here to that edge. Yeah, I think. Let me do it again. That's perfect. These are my daughter's footprints. She's the unknown. These are my daughters. Yeah. Am I your descendant? I stare at my face and wonder if I look like you. When I quiet myself, I can hear you. Your voice carries on the wind. It sounds like echoes floating in the distant breeze. I try to put faces to shadows. I search for you in cotton fields and scattered bones, unmarked graves and watery tombs that attempt to erase you from history, but you were here. You existed. I found your name. It was almost hidden, but in finding you, I found me.
Did you get the answer? The answer is D, all of the above. Do you remember? The video mentions that Kentucky was a slave state in the past and was full of racism. The lynchings at that time and the shooting of Black people like Breonna Taylor today also aroused her attention to the right to life and freedom. All of the above also inspired her to devote herself to the human rights movement, so she launched the Unknown Project, participated in protests, and wrote poems in support. Now, let's review important vocabulary of this section. Descendant. Am I your descendant? Take the opportunity to learn another word with the same meaning in this section. Offspring. We ain't offspring, we're the foundation of creation. What this poem tries to express is that African Americans are not only the continuation of a certain ethnic group, they are also an important part of creating American culture, economy, and history. Unmarked. Unmarked graves and watery tombs that attempt to erase you from history. Mark means being labeled, so unmarked means not labeled. For example, is the road marked or unmarked? There are two important phrases in this section. At times. He gets angry at times, but he's a good person. I don't want my daughter to live in a space where at times you can just feel the racism. Loosen up. A massage can really help you loosen up. Just kind of wiggle it around like you're trying to get it loosened up. After watching the video and learning the vocabulary and phrases, let's review and deepen your memory. The content of this video is: poet and activist Hannah Drake uses her writing to explore the history of racism in her hometown, Louisville, Kentucky, an American city that remains highly segregated. Following the wrongful police killing of Breonna Taylor, a young Black woman living in Louisville, Hannah reflects on the freedom and equality for African Americans today. She has been inspired by human rights movements such as the Unknown Project and writing poems, and hopes to continue her work to ensure the history of slavery and its impact on society is always known. The important words in the video are divide, racism, whitewash, lynch, slavery, unfold, condemnation, liberation, descendant, and unmarked. Important phrases are the bulk of something. Cries of justice for marched into. At times, loosen up. Next on, we are broadening your vocabulary. Follow us to view paintings and historical photos related to American slavery and learn related English words. Handling tobacco. Since the 17th century, tobacco has become the main cash crop in the Virginia colony, and the bulk of the labor force for growing tobacco comes from slaves trafficked from Africa, because every link from sowing, weeding, harvesting, to drying and sorting all required a lot of labor. Growing sweet potatoes. The photo shows people hoeing and plowing the fields, while others are cutting down piles of sweet potatoes for planting. Harvesting and handling cotton. Since the invention of the first cotton gin in the 19th century, cotton has gradually become a major crop in the southern United States. Cotton production increased from 5 million pounds in 1793 to 170 million pounds in 1820. The price of a slave also increased from $600 in 1802 to $1,800 in 1860. The total number of slaves increased from 1.5 million in 1820 to 4 million in 1860. Slave auction. Under slavery, these slaves were often treated as objects and sold at will. In addition to being deprived of freedom, they were also forced to be separated from their families and were vulnerable to physical punishment, sexual abuse, psychological abuse, or lynching. A ride for liberty, the fugitive slaves. Some slaves would choose to escape in order not to be separated from their families, or to pursue freedom and dignity. However, according to the Fugitive Slave Act, slave owners and their agents had the right to hunt down escaped slaves in free states, so not many slaves escaped successfully. First reading of the Emancipation Proclamation by President Lincoln. The Emancipation Proclamation was officially issued on January 1, 1863, marking the U.S. government's clear opposition to slavery. It also promoted society's understanding and acceptance of racial equality, and ultimately led to the abolition of slavery. It is an important milestone in promoting social progress and the development of human rights. Have you learned those? After finishing the video, we have compiled cultural knowledge for you. Uncle Tom's Cabin was the best-selling novel of the 19th century and is considered a major factor in spurring the rise of abolitionism in the 1850s. If you want to learn more about the story of American slavery, I recommend you read it. The novel was written by Mrs. Stowe, a teacher at Hartford College for Women and an active abolitionist. Mrs. Stowe said the novel was partly inspired by Josiah Henson's autobiography. Henson was a former slave who worked on tobacco plantations in Maryland. In 1830, he escaped from slavery to what is now Ontario, Canada, and wrote his memoirs. In addition, when Mrs. Stowe lived in Ohio, which was across the river from the slave-owning state Kentucky, she also interviewed a large number of slaves who escaped to Ohio, and the material obtained from them also became part of the novel, adding more realism to the contents. Today's course has come to an end. Hope you enjoyed. We'll see you next time.